Hello, and welcome to episode 72 of the Star Bros podcast.
You
excuse us
said it
for our
right this time. Good
yeah,
job.
excuse us for our giggles right off the bat. For those of you who are wondering what we're giggling about, we just tried to record the intro and Ben mispronounced podcast, so he asked me to do it instead.
While I'd love to say that's true, that is not. I mean,
All right,
from a certain point of view, it might be true.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I actually said podcast.
You did.
Which I think some people might actually say that. Where do people say that? Like Minnesota? Have you ever been to Minnesota?
I was thinking more of a Boston accent, maybe.
Oh,
Podcast
yeah.
in the car.
Yeah, I was listening to the podcast in the car. You're right.
all
Wow.
of our Boston listeners just went like, pew, tuned out.
Yep. They put on a different podcast.
They're like, we're done with this one.
Yeah.
But
I'm joined by I'm joined by my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
And I'm joined by my bro host, who always makes me laugh, Jan Solo.
Kind of you to say. And yeah, we do have the sillies a bit tonight, but this is a dead serious podcast.
This is. We don't laugh here. Why are we laughing so much?
I don't know. But we're going to be talking.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we're going to be talking about I don't know, man. What might be my favorite Star Wars movie?
It's my favorite Star Wars movie.
It's a contender, and tastes change, and there are seasons in your life, and maybe you like this one more or whatever. But gosh, I always come back to this one. I'm just like, this is a masterpiece, and that is Return of the Jedi.
Return of the what?
The Jedi.
The Jedi.
Yes.
What are those guys?
We'll get into all that. But
okay.
You've come up with a fancy title for this episode that I think people need to hear.
I have, which explains why we're talking about it. It's much more creative than the last time a movie that we talked about turned 40, which was our second episode ever.
Yep.
Look at that, 70 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Now we're on to 72. Look how far we've come.
Yeah.
That movie was Empire Strikes Back that turned 40. Mm-hmm. We called that one in a movie 40 years ago in a movie theater far, far away. Very original. Or a play on a very original something.
It was a good title.
I'm stalling saying it because it's so ridiculous.
Why? Blurt it out.
Good Porgy, Return of the Jedi's 40. It sounds worse every time I say it.
Well, we're going with it.
And let's just say Jan named this one.
No, stop it. Stop it. We have to stop blaming each other.
Blaming? I'm giving credit. What are you talking about?
Thank you. So Return of the Jedi is over the hill, and we're going to start talking about it in a few minutes.
Is 40 over the hill? I thought 50 was.
50. Yeah. Okay. So we'll come back in 10 years and we'll call it over the hill.
Okay.
But we're excited to talk about it. There's a lot to reflect on. We both just watched it, and many of you may have watched it in the theater recently because they re-released it. I think it was last Thursday, and I think it runs through this weekend. So
in fact, we know many people watched it because it was up there in some of the box office numbers.
Last week,
like 5th.
Yeah, last weekend it definitely was. Which good for them. I mean, I think I saw it when it was re-released in the late 90s on the big screen.
Okay.
And I was trying to actually think today whether I saw a version that was as touched up as the one that's on Disney Plus.
I know I saw a version that was not touched up because when I saw the version that was, I went, oh, that's different. Oh, that's different. So yeah, I noticed the things that were different, and some of them stuck with me. But I feel like I've forgotten a lot of them over the years as I've just gotten used to the additions.
Agreed. So we'll come back to that. But before we jump into all that stuff, how are you doing, dude?
I'm good. I guess I don't know. Some of the viewers at home might be able to see my eye. It's starting to get better. No, it's in the dark side, so never mind. Ooh, it's on the dark side. Ooh, which is good because I kind of look like Maul right now.
Cool.
I guess everyone else was asking me if something was wrong with me. not cool. But it's been a long week. I'm done traveling finally. I was like traveling 3 weeks straight, which was exhausting.
Tell me all the places you've gone. You went to New York, Chicago, and then back to New York?
Then back to New York. Yeah, in 3 separate weeks.
Wow.
So Chicago was for a while. It was like 3 or 4 days, 3 nights, I think. And then the New York trips were just 1 dayers. But gosh, a trip up to New York and back, and I didn't get back till 12:48 one night. So I was tired.
Well, that's a really long day. Some people do that commute. So for if you're new, we're in the Philadelphia area and we're just couple of hours away from New York City. And some people commute into New York City from Philadelphia for work, meaning that they sit on a train for 4-ish hours a day. Um, but it's rare. Like in your case, I think you went up, did all your stuff, like had dinner, evening stuff, and then you get home after midnight, which seems exhausting. So
Yeah.
I commend you for all that
You know
exciting travel.
you know who was the most grateful, or what was the most grateful, I should say, for me
What's that?
finally being home? My lawn today.
Yeah.
I mowed it and it was atrocious. It was like mowing a forest down.
Well, I'm sure it looks great now.
It does. I put a lot of tender care into it.
We had a really nice day today weather-wise, which meant like all the windows were open,
For a
which
change,
meant
yeah.
which meant that I could hear everybody cutting their lawns and the weed whackers and everything else because today was a day where it seemed like everybody in the neighborhood was
Well, last
outside.
weekend it was raining the whole weekend, so you
Yeah.
couldn't. So it was
Yeah.
like catch up.
Yeah. So I was on the phone with somebody today and I was going around and closing the windows because we were surrounded by people who are cutting their lawns and stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we have people in the neighborhood who want to take care of their lawns. But
Agreed.
yeah, so
You
terrific.
doing well as well? Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed watching Return the Jedi at home. I enjoyed revisiting that. And you know, when you go on like Disney Plus, it just picks up where you left off.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think I put it on at some point. I don't know, like in the last year, and I only got like 15 minutes into it before something must have interrupted me. So like
Oh, that's funny.
I haven't sat down and watched it, and I don't know how long. Probably like 2+ years.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
like I've had it on in the background, I
Yeah,
think, but like actually sit down like with my notebook and pay attention to it.
yeah.
It's been a long time.
I bet that was rewarding.
It totally
Um,
was. Yeah.
I had the opposite, which was for some odd reason, the movie had 15 minutes left
Oh,
the
and you
last
were
time that I turned it. It said like, "Do you want to restart it or start where you left off with like just the last 15 minutes?" I went,
the credits are like 6 minutes.
yeah, exactly. It was like I saw Vader die. I'm like, I'm done. That's it.
This is where the Ben Skywalker cut actually ends.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. There's no celebration afterwards.
No,
But anyway,
no yub nubbing, none of that.
yeah, none exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how about I want to get into it. So how about we get to our first
Okay.
segment? Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do that. What's that one called?
That one is called News from Across the Galaxy.
That was a tentative sound effect because you sound a little bit tentative.
It was very tentative for
But
fun.
we've got huge blockbuster news right after this commercial break. I'm just kidding. We don't have any ads. And we also don't have any big news. But thanks for sticking with us. What do you got?
Wow, I didn't know. Visions is out.
Yeah. Okay. So that's big news.
That is big news. Yeah, Visions came out. We had May the 4th.
We had
That's a big deal for a lot of us.
May 4th. Yes. How did you observe this most holy of days in the Star Wars calendar?
I observed it by contemplating buying stuff that I ended up not buying at the end of the day because I just looked at everything and I'm like, oh, I can't. I just can't. And eventually talked myself out of it.
Dude, you are not alone. You are not. I think there were millions of fans doing exactly that.
But I looked at everything. I was like, I really, because I feel like that's what you do to celebrate is you watch Star Wars and you buy stuff.
You buy stuff, you decorate with more Star Wars
Yeah.
stuff. Some people will cook a Star Wars type meal.
We did that one year. That was fun.
Yeah.
By we, I mean, I think my wife did it and it was amazing with my sister-in-law.
Awesome. So people find different ways of having like themed get-togethers and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
if you had a particularly fun way of celebrating that holiday, dear listeners, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or shoot us an email. We'll let you know what all of our socials are at the end of the episode. But love to see
You
a
have
lot
to
of
stay around to get those. Come
yeah,
on.
right. I have to tease
But
those.
what did you do?
Let's see. What did I do? So we did some stuff at work actually.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I get to work with a lot of people who are Star Wars fans, and there are people with different T-shirts. One of the people I work with had a bunch of pins on, different Star Wars pins, which I always
Oh
think
yeah,
are cool.
I wore my Darth Vader cufflinks.
Cool. I saw some people in costume. There was a costume contest. There was some fun
Nice.
stuff. So
Nice.
people found a way to really enjoy the spirit of the day and get
And
into
they
it.
put it on. They put on some of the movies in some of the rooms too. Did you
Yeah,
pop in to watch one?
yeah. I popped in. I watched A New Hope for a little bit. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was just a fun, relaxing day, and it was cool just to sort of see like who else is a Star Wars fan.
I love that.
Yeah,
Awesome. And I think both of you are both you and I are in the same boat that we still got to watch some Visions. I watched Sith, the first one, and
yeah.
it's good. I really liked it. I'm not gonna lie. It was very colorful
Okay.
and showed the Force through color, which I really enjoyed. So
Oh, I like the sound of that.
yeah, that's something I think you and I are. I've heard great reactions, great reviews. It sounds like it's been really well received. Rumors are maybe a third one is on the way. I mean,
Oh,
if
really?
they keep rumors.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll wait for the some official announcement on that. But yeah, if it's any as if it's as good as the first season was, then we're in for a treat. If it's better, then Star Wars
So
fans are
be
spoiled.
it.
Then so be it. So anyway,
Cool.
I think we're gonna have an episode covering that again, like we did season one, right?
Yeah, I think we will. I'm planning on starting tomorrow, so
Good.
I'm pretty pumped to dig into it.
I'm planning on starting right after I hang up.
Whoa! All right, look at
So
you.
let's hurry up. Come on, man.
Okay. You want me to do a little news item here?
How about you doing?
Okay. So again, it was May the 4th this past week,
Yes, it was.
and on May the 4th, at long last, Carrie Fisher got her own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
So touching.
Yeah, it was really nice. So her daughter, Billie Lourd, I think was sort of at the helm for doing all that. And by the way, you got to pay for it. I don't know if you knew that.
The star?
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I'm not surprised by that, I guess.
So it's I think it starts at $40,000,
Okay.
and I think that covers like the materials, the city installs it, and so on. But there's like I think a process, like a petitioning process,
Yeah, because
and
I can't just go put down $40 and they'll slap star of meat on there.
right, right. Even though I think it would be well deserved, but that's just my opinion.
We're
But so they jumped through all the hoops, and she
gonna be in the
finally,
podcasting Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's our expectation.
um, but so here's who was there, by the way.
Okay.
Uh, the Mark Hamill
I know him.
joined Billy Lord, and they're in the majority of the pictures together.
Mhm.
But Kathleen Kennedy was also there,
Yeah.
and J.J. Abrams was
Yes.
also there, who got to direct her in two of the films.
Yeah.
And there was a R2D2 C3PO. I don't know if it was actually them. I don't know what they're actually doing these days, but they were there, which was cool to see. And it seemed like it had a
Uh,
great turnout. And it's just I don't know where it is. I've only been down the Walk of Fame once, and I'd love to go back and find hers. And I've been to the I don't know if it's the Kodak Theater now, but whatever the it used to be the Grauman's Chinese Theater.
mhm.
And that's the spot where you see the celebrities like put their handprints and their
Yeah.
shoe prints and then sign them. Right when you first sort of like step onto the property for the theater, one of the first ones that you see R2D2 and C3PO in the cement, and they sign their names. And so they took an R2 unit and sort of dipped him in the concrete, and you could see like his little tripod wheel mark foot things.
Love
Pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah.
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 So I hope she's near there. That would be really nice. But that was just really nice to see that recognition
Yes.
and celebrate her. And
And Mark Hamill and Billy Lord had some great things to say about Carrie. Glitter was involved.
yeah, she
Uh,
threw glitter in the air. Yeah.
yeah, on her grave or grave. Gosh, no, her star. Um, and talked about just how she was full of glitter in her life, and I guess that's a very apt way of describing Carrie. So,
And
I,
glitter
I
it sticks to you if you've ever gotten it like on you. Like I don't know if your daughter ever does like craft projects. Like you just find it forever.
yo,
And
yeah, exactly.
I think that was one of her points was that her mom just sort of left this sparkle on people around
Yeah,
her. People
yeah.
walked away with like a little bit more shine because they got to meet Carrie Fisher. And I think to this day I've only ever talked to one person who actually met her. And you did as well. We were
Hmm.
in line with that guy Mike.
Yeah.
Um at New York Comic Con last year, which we're hoping to go back to this year.
That'd be nice.
But it just seemed like from the story that he told about her singing to him and stuff like that and being very sweet and genuine and kind, that he was left with that impression too. So he got a little bit of that sparkle. And
Yeah.
it seemed like everybody did.
Yeah. It was great to see that she was finally recognized and that they finally gave her the chance. And now that you're talking about like, the money and stuff, it makes me just wonder like how long did it take her, who put the money together? Like
I don't
it
know.
seems like this should have been done ages ago, but I don't know the whole process. Like you said, there could be more to that, but well deserved, and it was really cool to see that they did that on May the 4th too, just to
Perfect.
and Mark Hamill talked about it. Maybe this should really be Carrie Francis Fisher, like using her full
Oh, I
name.
like that.
So it was really really cool to see some of this. Oh, and then like Billy Lord's dress was just his mom in as Princess Leia. Like that was literally the dress. It was
Cool.
pretty cool. So anyway, that was great. One other thing that happened on May the 4th was The Simpsons and their Rogue Not Quite One, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
You got the chance to watch that, right?
I did actually. Right before we started recording, I gave it another look, and boy, that's 4 minutes of entertainment that is it's pretty out there, right? Like spoilers. We'll talk about what actually happens in this thing. So if you haven't seen Return of the Jedi, definitely turn off this podcast and go watch it. But if you haven't seen this, totally up to you. It's not exactly a key part of the Star Wars story, but it's just a silly little adventure of little Maggie Simpson from the Simpsons cartoon, who gets into Grogu's hover pram and then accidentally shoots off into space. And meanwhile, Homer gets eaten by some alien in Moe's Cantina, and some other goofy stuff happens.
But I love that it was called Moe's Cantina too.
Yeah,
Just really, really great in-universe stuff that was just pried out of it and stuck into the Simpsons universe. And talk about like a melding of two worlds that we need.
Oh yeah,
more of.
and he chugs a glass of blue milk. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
Lots of little stuff, but it's also kind of like a story about parenting. And I think, and you can speak to this much better than I can, but you see Mando walking in with like his diaper bag and whatever else for Grogu, and to
that sign that said no Disney discounts, no Disney perk discounts ever.
Yes. Yes.
That was pretty funny.
They were poking Disney in the ribs a little bit there. But yeah, it just goes off into silly adventures. She ends up in space. There's TIE fighters. There's a Darth Maul type baby character. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
But the
and then rainbows come out after he takes the binky.
After he gets a pacifier, he's pacified and he's relaxed, and he no longer wants to
like
shoot the hover
turn
pram down.
into like different colors, and then like
he just relaxes.
Little TIE bomber starts I don't know, spitting rainbow or something. Exhausting rainbow.
Exhausting, yes. But she goes all over the galaxy, and then she's far away, and Homer's trying to look it up on his phone to see what the driving directions are, and it's 28,000 light years away or whatever. And she ends up finding her way back. And one of the things that I loved was they worked in those aliens from the Treehouse of Terror.
Yes.
Or is it Treehouse of Horror?
Treehouse of Horror, yeah.
Treehouse of Horror. Those two goofy aliens who are always sort of looking down on the world and criticizing it, making fun of it. Mm-hmm. They end up saving the day and saving Maggie, and Maggie gets back safe and sound. But one of my favorite things was at the end of the episode, just like at the end of a Mandalorian episode, they had still frames.
Oh yes, I love this too.
But rather than being still frames of like concept art of what you might see in the short, they were just other silly things like the robot in the hover pram,
or Burns as Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, and Homer as Fat Mando, where his like belly's hanging out.
Yes.
The helmet won't fit on his head. There's some really good, fun, silly stuff in there.
And never, it's like the genius is that I actually listened to a different podcast. Sorry, to our own podcast, I guess. No, I listened to a different podcast the other day of one of the writers that's like retired from The Simpsons.
Oh,
and
no
I may
way.
have mentioned this. I talked to somebody about this, and how he basically just gets paid thousands a year just to consult now for The Simpsons. It's amazing. He sounds like he lives a great life.
Yeah, it sounds terrific.
Like he went underwater. Like it was a whole episode on like his crazy vacations that he takes, and one of them was to the Titanic. Like, he
No
actually went to the
way.
Titanic and tells this hilarious story about how they couldn't find it for the longest time. By the time they found it, they only had 20 minutes with it because there was a hurricane coming, so they had to
Did
go.
did he actually go down like in the submarine?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I've seen some videos of that. I think that's
He
expensive.
also
It's
he
really
also yes.
expensive.
Yes. He also went to, North Korea
Holy
on vacation.
guacamole. Really?
Uh-huh. It's a great episode. It's one of that, it's from On the Bit of Optimism by Simon Sinek. I really like that one. Anyway,
Wow. Wow.
point being, they're just chock full of great humor. Like, they just, uh, they're so good. They're so original every single time.
Yeah.
I'd
They
love to be in
packed a
that
lot
writer's room.
in. Oh, me too. They packed a lot into a 4-minute short.
Yeah.
Like it was a joke like every half second.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's impressive.
great
That one
stuff.
was good. I've got a bunch of little small ones I'll run through, and then if you have anything else, we'll get through
Yeah.
them. But let's uh let's get to Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
Apparently the Andor script is done. And that's important news because of the Writers Guild strike that's going on right
Hmm.
now. Apparently, Tony Gilroy was able to sneak it all in before that happened, so it's not going to delay any filming or anything. Not that that really matters in the grand scheme of things, given the strike and everything that's going on. But at the same time, it's good to know that uh, it's good to know that they fit it in, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Um, but they did talk about how there might be issues because, like, on set, they do rewrite sometimes. So if they're filming and they're like, "We want to rewrite this," it's going to be a little challenging.
Yeah.
So, but that's good news. Progress is being made on Andor.
That is good news. And I'm starting to hear different shows that were about to kick off production in the very near term are almost definitely going to be delayed. Like
Hmm.
one example that might benefit us in the long run, maybe The Last of Us season 2 has been declared delayed. The One of the creators and head writers of The Last of Us is on the front line of the picket line pretty much every day.
Really?
And yep, with all of his team of writers and everybody else in solidarity with them. So I don't know if that means that the production schedule gets shifted back to a point where maybe we get Pedro Pascal back in Mando first and then Last of Us, because this past season we had the
Well,
trip.
wait. Season 4 hasn't even started writing or anything.
Right. So I don't know if like if they're both on pause, I don't know which one's gonna kind of get out of the gate first, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
and yeah, I guess I just assumed that there would be nothing on Mando until we heard if there's going to be a season 4, when there's going to be a season 4.
I just assumed that there would be, but who knows?
I assume that too, but with my guess is that with all the other projects coming out, and now with Dave Filoni doing the movie and stuff, that there's going to
Yeah.
be, uh, I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of a pause.
There,
Like, we
there
haven't
could
heard
be.
anything.
There could be. Did you hear about like what it is that they're striking about though?
Isn't it all wage related?
It's
Like
all
fair
wage
wages?
related. And by the way, we're not crossing the picket line here because we don't have writers and we are volunteers. And so we're not
Unless you
we're
want my binder of notes or something, which
yeah, which
not the
I'm not
greatest
giving up
writing in the
until the
world.
strike is over.
Yeah.
So if you want to cross that picket line, that's on you. I'll be there standing with the giant inflatable rat. But
Nice.
yeah, they were talking about how when you write an episode for a TV show, when it reruns on a network channel, typically the pay
Oh,
rate
they
has
don't
been like
get any like back pay, right?
if it reruns on a network channel, you get like 75% of what you got the first time around to write it.
Mm,
So over the course of your life, if it reruns a lot, you can make a good living.
yeah.
But a lot of the streaming networks have negotiated contracts where you get if it runs on a streaming network, you get 5% of what you got paid the first time around.
Mm, okay.
And where are most people watching TV these days?
Streaming.
Right. So they're basically saying we're not taking a 95% pay cut from what we were originally paid for the privilege of being on, Stream USA or whatever. You pick your
Yeah.
favorite streamer.
Yeah.
So I get where they're coming from because The way that I heard it described was it's turning writing from a profession to potentially part of the gig economy. And it's hard to make a living in those situations. So
yeah,
we hope that everything goes well, and we love and appreciate all the good content that we get from writers when they can freely express themselves and get paid for it. So
yeah, you definitely see when you don't get good writing. Like it's one of those things that's really hard to put your finger on, but you know
oh
it when you
yeah,
see it, and you know it when you don't see it. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So, anyway, uh, yeah, that was it on Andor. There's an update on Taika's movie. It sounds like he is, ironically enough, we're talking about writing. He is writing it
Mhm.
all by himself. I'm wondering if that means he's part of the strike too. I actually didn't hear anything on this, but assuming that it keeps on the tracks, it's supposed to start filming next year, according to Kathleen Kennedy in
Okay.
an interview with her. So we all kind of went, well, okay, what's happening with that movie? We haven't heard anything on it. Sounds like it's still in production. Sounds like it's still on track. They're just giving Taika free reign to take his time with it.
And what did we say? The first thing that I said when he told me that he was writing it on his own, I just said, this could be weird.
This is going to be weird. It's going to be very wacky.
It could be really wacky. And I remember a while ago where he said something about like, hey, I'm going to explore a whole different corner of the galaxy. I'm not going to do this thing of like, oh, we meet Chewbacca's grandmother. And I thought that's exactly the movie that Taika would write, though.
That's what we need too.
The Adventures of Chewbacca's grandmother feels like something that would come from like his typewriter, but that's just me.
That's true. But alas, no, he's not going to write that one.
We're going to get something kooky and odd and very different, but I bet you it's going to have that Star Wars feeling because he seems like he's a fan and he knows how to capture that feeling.
Exactly. So yeah, you don't have to worry anymore. It's still happening. That's the news.
Thank goodness.
I mean, again, I've said it many times on this podcast. I'll keep saying it. I'll believe it when I see it enter production. That's really the point where I'm like gonna start believing we're getting a movie.
Yeah.
Until then, I'm just excited that we've got some updates.
Me too.
My last thing, and then if you have anything else, we can cover it and then move forward. A little bit of news on the Ahsoka series.
Oh yeah.
We have runtimes and number of episodes.
Yeah.
60 minutes each around?
60 minutes. 8 episodes. 8 hours of content coming in August and September.
So much content.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And what was your reaction to that?
I mean, I'm hyped for that, but that's about all we know at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
But that seems like plenty of time to tell multiple stories, probably.
Yeah, a little bit like what they did with I mean, there's so many characters that we got to go into and talk about, so we could be seeing a lot. We could see like what Sabine's been up to for the last few years.
We're gonna get her. We could get Thrawn right out of the gate.
Yeah,
and have him around for the whole series. Who knows what else?
Yeah, but exciting stuff. I mean, that's about what that's the same episode count that we get with Mandalorian, but I think in most cases longer, right? There's a lot of 30 minutes.
Cases.
Yeah. I always like the approach that they took with Mando and making it whatever the story needed it to be in terms of length, not too long, not longer, not shorter.
I love that.
That's a great approach, but
yeah,
I'll take more if you got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Terrific. So we have that to look forward to in August.
Yeah.
I have one other piece of news, and then we can jump into Return of the Jedi, which you know that you're all pumped about.
Yes.
And that's from the coronation today. The coronation of King Charles III.
I know where you're going with this.
Do you?
I do. Go ahead.
No, please.
Snoke?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I wasn't going to go there. Okay. Let's address the bantha in the room, as they say. So some people, I'm one of them, thought that the now coronated is not a word. That sounds like a medical procedure.
I don't know this stuff. I don't follow it.
We're not in the Commonwealth, and we're not as familiar with some of the customs of royalty. But the coronation process is 2+ hours long, and there's a lot of ceremony and there's a lot of symbolism and stuff like that. And part of it is like they dress him in this is the king that I'm talking about. They dress him in his vestments and they put on a robe and then they hand him his crown. And
Wait, I thought you said this wasn't it.
this isn't it. But I want to address what you're talking about, and then I'll get into.
Okay, okay.
But at one point they wrapped him as he's sitting on this throne from the 1300s, which, by the way, was, in my opinion, that throne was the star of the show.
I did not see it, but I'll take it.
It's covered in graffiti apparently because it's been passed around and people used to pay money to be able to sit in it in like the 17 and 1800s. And apparently, I was reading some of the graffiti. Somebody scratched in there, P. Abbott slept here July 5th, 1800. There's, but
wow.
It's this heirloom that's been passed around, but has been in use at coronations.
You were keeping everyone hanging by so many threads right now.
I know.
Stop.
But okay, so they dress him and they layer him up, and each piece of clothing has some meaning, and they read something or whatever. And they wrapped him in this gold robe, and immediately people started posting pictures of Snoke on his throne next to the new King Charles III on his throne.
Yes, so, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, so that's what Ben was talking about. But no, much more wholesome. Princess Charlotte, who is the daughter, I think she's 7 or 8. She's the daughter of Prince William and what's his wife's name? Roberta?
That's I don't know. I don't follow them. I'm telling you.
What's her name? Kate.
Yes.
I knew it was Kate or Roberta.
My gosh.
So Princess Charlotte, everybody was saying she looked like a little Leia.
Did she?
She kind of did. Aww. And so people were assuming that it was intentional. I don't think it was, but she did like the middle hair part and the tight bun, and she was wearing her tiara and the little white outfit and stuff, and she looked like a little Leia Organa, which is really cute.
Well, she's royalty.
She is.
To me, she's royalty.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to say it.
That's okay. I'm glad you did. And
that's cute. I can't believe that made our news, but it's amazing. All of it made our news.
Oh, yeah, we covered a lot. Maybe now we can jump into the main segment of our program.
What's that one called?
More to the story.
Dun, 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 dun. You're killing me already.
Where to begin?
I don't know, but I think you have some behind the scenes stuff, so we should probably start with that. But I have a question for you just right out of the gates that we can answer for both of ours on both of our ends. I guess.
How dare you?
How dare you?
Yes. Who do you think you are?
Exactly. Get off my podcast. Wait, our. I don't know why I went there. No, my question for you is just, how do you feel this movie is aged 40 years on? That was a question I was asking myself as I was watching. And there were a couple of moments where I was like, oh, that didn't really age well or something. But other than that, I was actually still really impressed with it. And I watched it with my son, Jack. And I think this is his first time watching it. But I haven't been like really excited to get into it. I'm hoping that changes at some point. But like I showed them, New Hope forever ago. He loved that one. Mm-hmm. Empire Strikes Back, just like I did. Wasn't really sure about it. Like, didn't really get some of the heavy stuff, the lessons and Yoda and stuff. So he didn't really like that one as much. This one, I think, captured his attention a little bit more again. Cool. And he was asking questions the whole way through. So,
love it.
Like, I think there's, I think there's still some magic in this one, if I'm being honest.
Oh, but 100%.
What do you think?
So it definitely holds up for me. Like I said at the very outset, I think it might be my favorite, and that changes from time to time. But I feel like over my life, this has been one that I come back to and just really love.
Oh, we're getting very meta now.
Yeah. I do think that some of the touch-ups, speaking of aging, speaking of being over the hill, some of the touch-ups, some of the changes feel like a little bit of plastic surgery to me gone wrong, where you can tell that hey, you're older than that, but your face is all smoothed out, but your neck is a little bit wrinkly, stuff like that.
Yes, so I agree.
I don't think it's a perfect movie. I don't know if there is a perfect movie, but I accept those flaws and I find new stuff in it when I watch it. New meaning, especially. Like I think I've seen every single frame of this movie 1,000 times, but
Oh, sure.
maybe I feel something a different way, or maybe I make a connection that I haven't before every time I go revisit it. And that happened this time. And I bet you it'll happen when we do the 50th anniversary
Yeah.
of Return of the Jedi.
We're gonna still be here doing it. That's pretty
We
funny
will.
to think about.
We could do the math and figure out what episode that's going to be, by the way.
It's probably gonna be in the 200s or 300s or something like that. But
Probably.
yeah,
We'll come back to that. But
yeah.
no, I love it. It holds up. The fact that I hadn't watched it in a while, when I got done, I was like, I need to watch this again in the not too distant future. Like I don't want to go 2
Mm,
years without watching this again. So
yeah. I totally agree with you on that. Do you want to talk about some of the touch ups for a minute here?
sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, you brought it up, and I think that's a very good analogy. It's really the CGI, right? And
It's
CGI just doesn't always age well
because you know
because
what?
the technology improves.
The
It's just
technology, it's and it feels different. It feels contrasting in some way. Like the practical effects, the way the light hits them, all that stuff. It feels
yeah,
consistent. Like you
yeah,
go into Jabba's palace, it feels very consistent
yes.
until
You
my
throw in some of those extra CGI things.
yeah, and that's the first one that really bothers me.
So I'm gonna go through a few of them that I wrote down, and if I
Okay.
miss any, let me know.
Okay,
But
I'm glad I'm sitting down, by the way.
I I'm gonna ask you, uh, would you would you keep it now or would you get rid of it?
Mhm.
Um, and the first one that I think of every time is the new song of Ice Ice Noodles.
That's the first one I've written down.
I knew it.
I would lose that in a second.
I would throw it out the window. Yes.
Out the window.
I actually didn't mind it as a kid. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Yeah, they threw in some CGI. Oh yeah, this is oh yeah, that's a really cool thing that they just did," and showing his big open mouth. Like, I kind of was fine with it as a kid,
Yeah.
but it didn't age on me well.
No, I'm with you. That was the first thing that really stood out to me today in my watch, and I was thinking about stuff that we wanted to talk about, and I'm glad that we both landed on this exact moment. But
I will say this though, real quick,
yeah,
with that. It's important to know it also inspired a lot of music, like in-universe music in other movies in Star Wars that I don't find as bad, but
okay.
and
So
one
good
of them
has
I
come
think
from
of
it.
like one of them I think of is Solo, where they've got like the floating head and the woman that's singing the song at the
Yeah,
bar, like that's that's fine for me.
yeah,
But it just doesn't work in this one. But I mean, I think it did kind of inspire a lot more of like that in universe music.
yeah. Well, that's cool. That's definitely an upside. But when her main musical number is done, and that little squirrel guy is done screaming in the camera,
Yeah.
the music that it cuts to is the original music. And so
Yeah.
there's a snippet of it left in there.
Yeah.
And that always kind of like doubles down on it for me of like, that worked just fine, that original music.
Uh-huh.
And practical effects size noodles work just fine.
Yeah.
So it takes me out of it. It takes me out of the movie. And I start going, oh my gosh, what is
It
this?
it felt like mostly to show off CGI, and that's why it didn't really work for me. But let's move on to another one.
Hmm,
Um the frog snack one.
I like it. Doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother me. I say keep it.
And I think like that shot of Jabba's palace with the setting suns, I think that's basically the original one.
Mhm.
And they just added that little frog dude. I guess it would be down here-ish on the
In the
screen.
corner. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so subtle. It's a little thing. It's not huge.
Gives a
It's
little
not
burp.
a
Makes
little
kids laugh.
the burp. It makes me laugh. It's not like a 4 minute long weirdo song number with cartoons. So
Okay.
I'm good with that.
We know where the bottom of the scale is for yawn now.
Yep. Yep.
um the CGI Sarlacc pit.
This is a tough one. I don't think it bothers me that much. Like the
It doesn't
beak
bother
coming
me.
out and stuff.
I mean, the beak is a little bit off sometimes. Like
Yeah.
you felt like it already had a mouth. So what does it have? 2 mouths now. So it's a little bit, it's weirder now, especially because now that we know that Sarlaccs and oh gosh, what are the big
Crate
creatures?
dragons.
No, not crate dragons. I'm thinking of Rathtars
Ah,
are
okay.
related to each other,
Yeah.
and you're like, where's the big beak on those? Like there isn't one. So
Hmm.
it's a little off, but I mean, I think it is a little bit more menacing too to have some of those touch ups.
It's a little bit scarier, yeah, and
Yeah,
it makes it scarier because when they fall in the Sarlacc pit in the original version, it's like, well, can't they just climb out if they really want to? And yeah, there's
yeah,
teeth and it's digesting you and whatever, but if a beak chomps down on you, then you know that person's probably not coming back.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one required to use your imagination a little bit more. So I don't know.
Would
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it too. Would I be okay with it if it wasn't there?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like meh, middle of the road.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like a lot of CGI gets added during the Death Star battle,
Yes. It
and
didn't bother me. Although I think there were a few moments where I was like, that looks too slick or too CGI.
too new for
Too
when it was
too
made.
new. Contrast with the like the texture and feel of the original practical effects and
I mean, they
stuff.
all do a bit because
They
they
yeah,
were just it was just piecemealed in there. It wasn't like everything was improved. It was just little pieces. Oh, we're gonna throw this in
yeah,
here, throw it in there.
yeah,
But again, to me, it's fine.
yeah,
It almost looks like a movie that's like, okay, we only have this much CGI. Which scenes are we going to spend it on? And they spend it on just a few scenes, and then the rest of it's just all choreographed, right?
that's a good way to put it too. Yeah.
So it happens in movies all the time, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think I know what you're going to say to this one, and this one technically wasn't a George Lucas one. It was Darth Vader's no.
Oh, really? That wasn't
I
him?
I thought that well, maybe, but I thought that was when it went to streaming. They added that. Am I
Hmm.
mistaken?
I don't know.
I thought that was a Disney era one.
Okay. Hmm.
What do you think of that? But you know what I'm talking about.
Well, why don't you remind our listeners?
No. No. Oh no. When Emperor Palpatine is
Yeah.
shocking our hero Luke Skywalker and he's about to die, there's an audible no that Darth Vader yells out twice before he picks him up
So
and throws him over. Those no's were not in there originally.
what was it before? He was just silent, right?
He was just silent.
Yeah, I remember really liking that. And the other thing was you can't read his expression, but you can sort of see how he's turning, and the way the camera pans in lets you know that he's having this internal struggle.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like they needed him to say, "No, do not want."
Dude, you know, I have the Blu-rays from before Disney bought it. I need to go and pop those in and see what they
Oh,
did
yeah, 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 yeah. Let me know.
because I can't remember. It might be a George Lucas ad after all. Let me go and find out.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
He doesn't usually go back and mess with dialogue though. He usually goes back and messes with visuals.
No, that's true. It's Disney that's really done the dialogue, McClunky.
Clunky.
You know, so
Yeah.
yeah. All right. At first, I didn't like it, and I think I still prefer the original,
Mhm.
but it still works for me now.
Yeah, oh yeah. It totally works. And for me, I think it works visually especially well.
It also kind of works if I just think about Revenge of the Sith, which I'll be talking about a lot actually while we're
Okay.
recording while we talk about this one. Um, I guess the way that he was just like no, you know, when he
Yeah,
got
yeah,
off the
yeah.
table and stuff, like
Yep.
it kind of bookends that really well.
Okay,
His
that's a good point.
his ascent, his fall
So
to the dark side, and then
his
his
like
ascent.
yeah, totally. Okay. So that maybe George Lucas did put that in there because that
Maybe
would
he
be like
must.
a nice symmetrical start and end to his life as Vader.
Yeah, so like that was one of the reasons I do like it now.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, okay, I think I have two more. Showing all the extra planets after the celebration that the Empire had fallen. They showed the Gungans on top of
Yeah.
Naboo. They showed more of Coruscant, I think.
I actually hated this at first.
Okay.
because it really steps on Yub Nub. Like,
Why?
it used to be the end of Return of the Jedi was basically an Ewok party.
Yeah.
And now they've cut that Ewok party down to, 30 seconds or a minute or whatever.
No, I don't think they touched that.
I think going around to these parades with fireworks all over the galaxy overshadows that fun moment on the
Well,
Farce Moon of Endor.
see, I liked it because I always felt like this is the fall of the Empire
It
that
is,
is
and
running the entire galaxy, and we're just seeing the one little celebration they're having here. Like, would they be celebrating everywhere? Oh yeah, and the fact that we got the prequels, right? Oops, sorry about that, folks.
it's getting worked up.
I know, I just dropped. My bad. Yeah, the fact that we got the prequels and all the other planets and things, this is just a way to say like, hey, they're celebrating too. So I was fine with it. I really
No,
like this.
I've come around to it, so it works for me
Okay.
now. But I
You
used
love
to.
your Ewoks, I know.
I love the Ewoks, and we'll talk about that. But I felt like at first maybe it kind of crowds them out a little bit, like it minimizes them after they help to save the galaxy.
Yeah.
But my feelings on that are evolving still. But speaking of
Okay.
the Ewok party, I think one of the biggest changes
You're
is
getting to the last one I had.
yeah. Go ahead, please.
Hayden Christensen replaces Anakin as Anakin Skywalker.
Okay, so stay with me for a second. Imagine pick one of the other Force ghosts. Which one do you want to be? You want to be Obi-Wan?
I'm Yoda.
Okay, so you're Yoda. You show up at this party.
I guess I should have chosen Obi-Wan, but oh well.
Okay,
Too late.
No, it's not too late.
No, too late.
Okay,
I'm Yoda.
so you're Yoda. You show up to this party. You look around and you're like, wow, everybody's having a great time. Hey, there's Luke. Good to see you, Luke. Hey, you look down. You're like, oh, I get to be the 900-year-old version of me in the afterlife. You look over at Obi-Wan.
Well, I mean, we've seen the 50-year-old version. He's not that much different.
It's not that much different. You look over at Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's like, okay, cool. I get to be old Ben
I
in
know
the afterlife. And then Anakin walks up, and he's like 27 years old, strapping young lad with his long flowing locks.
So what you're saying, because Anakin is really about 40 years old at the point where he dies, that Hayden Christensen needs to go and replay it now that he himself, the actor, is 40.
That was not where I was going, but that's a brilliant idea.
I mean, let's just remake them all over again. We're like one step short of remaking all of the films.
Yeah. So it takes me out of it a little bit. Now that we've had the prequels and Clone Wars and everything else, it makes a ton of sense that we get to go back to that guy, that version of Anakin, the young, healthy, strapping version of Anakin is the one that we get as a Force ghost. But you feel for the other guys, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were feeling for the actor that got replaced, but
for him too. For him
okay.
too. Yeah, I guess you don't get. Well, yeah, he still gets royalty checks if he's still with us. I don't know if he is.
I don't know actually.
Okay.
We just went through. Would you keep it? Is my question.
Dude, I don't know. Yeah, I'd keep it.
Okay.
I'd keep, now that we've gotten the prequels and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd keep it. What about you? Keep?
I'm on the fence still.
It's not easy.
I feel like it is a bit necessary now that you do know the beginning from the start. So I think keep it is the right answer, so that you tie everything together really well. Do I love it? It's fine. Okay. I think the hard part would have been, as people watch it later on, they're like, who's that guy? That's not Anakin. We've seen Anakin in the prequels.
I wondered, I wondered about that with Luke. So Luke looks at him and goes, guess that's my dad. Does he recognize him?
Here's okay. I'm gonna go down rabbit holes if I don't stop. So sure. I'm just gonna say, let's just say keep it and move on.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the behind the scenes stuff that you gathered, and then we'll get into the movie, since we're kind of talking behind the scenes right now too?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay.
Okay, so a few things. Do you know what the original title of Return of the Jedi was?
Return of the Wills.
It was called Return of the Jedi. But Lawrence Kasdan in 20th Century Fox came to George Lucas and said, it's a bit bland. Can we call it something else?
Okay.
So they changed it to Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh, yes.
And so there are posters and other promotional materials that
Yes,
say
I knew
Revenge
this.
of the Jedi.
Yep.
And after that stuff started going out, George Lucas came back to Lawrence Kasdan in the studio and said, it doesn't make sense. A Jedi is not going to be seeking revenge.
Right.
And changed it back to Return of the Jedi, his original intended title.
Yep.
And then went back and reused that revenge line in the episode 3, the closing chapter of the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
There are promotional materials out there that you can buy, and collectors, I think, like to find this stuff that say,
as soon as you said it, I know I've seen it before, because when I was shopping for my movie posters that I have in the basement, I saw them.
Cool.
For lots of money that I don't have.
I'm sure that they are a fortune.
But the podcast will get us some money that we need eventually to buy this.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what the working title was?
No.
Okay. So some of the crafty people at the studio, people working on the film, said, look, our location scouts alone are going to get killed when they find out that we're looking for places to film the next Star Wars movie. They're going to price gouge us. We're going to get ripped off because they know that we've got a big budget behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep the snoops away, to make sure that we can bargain on price a little bit, let's pretend that this is a film called Blue Harvest, and it's a horror film. And they had stuff that had the working title Blue Harvest with the tagline "Horror Beyond Imagination" on it. And so, for example, when they went up to Grizzly Creek State Park, which is about 5 hours north of San Francisco, to film The Farthest Moon of Endor, they just said, hey, we're just filming this horror movie, low budget thing. And we're able to negotiate a good price. In 1985, there's an Ewok cartoon that comes out, and one of the episodes is called Blue Harvest. So they went back and reused it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of our dear, friendly little murder bears, apparently everybody hated them.
Oh, Ralph, the Ewoks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, behind the scenes, people working on the movie. So, for example, Ralph McQuarrie hated the Ewoks. Thought it was peak commercialism.
Kind of
right. So George Lucas goes to him and says, hey, here's the idea, little teddy bear guys, whatever, spears, hoods. And Ralph McQuarrie said he drew 3 pictures. And he said, if you don't like these, I'm not drawing a 4th. You're gonna have to find somebody else to draw these things. And apparently George said, oh, these are perfect. And so we see Ralph McQuarrie's little murder bears, but he wasn't happy about it. And apparently a lot of the people behind the scenes were just rolling their eyes when they were filming a lot of the Ewok stuff.
That's hilarious.
Do you know where the word Ewok comes from?
Nope.
George Lucas.
You're teaching me lessons left and right. This is great.
Fun stuff. George Lucas primarily grew up in, and I think still lives in, the Marin County area, which is a lovely part of the San Francisco Bay. And there were native peoples who lived in that area. And he found that in their language, the word Miwok meant the people. And so he just shortened it to Ewok.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more things.
Murder people.
And then we can, the little murder people. And then we can get into the episode. So Harrison Ford didn't want to do the movie.
Really?
He went to George Lucas and said, all right, I'll do it under one condition. Any guesses?
That he dies?
Kill my character.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this.
And they loved the idea. And they were like, okay, well, we can kill him somewhere in the beginning of the 3rd act. And that'll make it feel like, to the audience, like none of their favorite characters are safe if you lose one of the main characters.
Sure.
apparently the story was that behind the scenes, they were negotiating with Harrison Ford and with his agent. Something happened where his agent was terribly ill. His agent had a family business. His son was also an agent at the firm. They negotiated with the son to keep him in the movie and keep him alive. The son agreed, went back to Harrison, got him on board. And then years later, the agent, his original agent who had fallen ill, came back and had some not so nice words about all that stuff because he felt like he wasn't able to honor his client's wishes.
But he agreed to them at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, he agreed to them, but wasn't thrilled about it.
Okay.
Here's one more thing that they considered doing in the movie that I'd love to get your take on. So originally it was supposed to have a much darker ending. You heard about this?
Keep going. Maybe.
There was actually a scene where Luke kills Vader, picks up his helmet, and says, "I am Vader now."
What?
And that's how the movie ends.
How would that be the way that a movie should, like?
Yeah.
Interesting. And that's actually really interesting now that you say that, while having watched The Sith, the episode of the anime, The Visions.
Visions. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to go watch this.
Yeah, it's just a little interesting.
Okay.
Wasn't the exact same, but that's interesting.
Yeah,
and glad they didn't do that.
I'm glad they didn't do it too. They messed around a lot with the script. You can find different versions, and some of them are anecdotes.
They always do, right? We talked in the previous episode about the evolution of New Hope and how it kind of how it just kind of kept evolving and figuring out the characters and who they were and their names and how the movie would start. Like there was some weird stuff at the beginning. So it's just part of the creative process.
Totally. So the real quick, the movie came out on May 25th, 1983. Cost about $35 million. There's a range. They say it's between 35, 45, somewhere in there. To date in the theater before this most recent release, it's pushing 500 million in total box office, which is wild when you think about it. It made 10x. So it made between 350 million, 450 million just in 1983. When I don't know, what did it cost to go to a movie in 1983? $2.
Much cheaper than it does now.
Much cheaper, but they still made almost $500 million back then.
That's great. Yeah.
An absolute blockbuster, but maybe now we can get into the actual story itself.
Yeah. Let's get into it. And again, I think I'm really curious to hear what you think on how it's aged in certain pieces. I think the story has just gotten richer since we've gotten all the additions of The Mandalorian and seeing where the state of the Empire is after Return of the Jedi. So like a lot of that was crossing my mind. The comics, which I'm in the middle of, about to start the Vader comics that are in between episodes 5 and 6, and so you see a little bit of the evolution of the relationship with Palpatine and basically how he kind of falls out of favor of Vader, of Palpatine. Vader does. And so so I'm gearing up to read that more. But to me, one of the questions that I had after watching this was actually, we need to ask Chris about this, but do we know a lot or anything at all about Luke's final training and the stuff that happens between 5 and 6? Because I mean, he constructs his own lightsaber, which now, having seen Clone Wars, we know how spiritual of a process that is and how important that is in the evolution of a Jedi. We assume that he went back to Dagobah. We assume that he had some more instances of training because he's learned a thing or two when we see him again. And I can't help but think of like all the richness that we've gotten in other stories. Like, what is the story that happened for Luke between those episodes? That's
a good point. About maybe it pops up in comics or something like that. Because even when I was a kid and I was like watching these on VHS, I was really struck by the Luke that we leave in Empire Strikes Back. Feels like a lot has happened, and it's not the Luke that we get in Return of the Jedi. He seems so much more mature and polished. He seems like a Jedi. He seems like a Jedi Knight. Introduces himself as such, dresses differently, all that stuff. So plenty has happened, and yeah, I wonder what the details are.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do some digging. Maybe just text Chris after to see if there's anything, because some of the Star Wars comics. I mean, I know that there's some. There's a lot that develops between 4 and 5,
Yeah.
both for Luke, and then for Vader as well, and him discovering that Luke is actually his son, and things. So,
Hmm.
um, it gives you a little bit more than what you get in the movies, which makes them so fantastic. So I would be surprised if we haven't gotten anything, but frankly, if we haven't, hey, uh, I know a couple of great comic book writers that should probably get on that. um,
Totally agree.
Charles Soule specifically,
Looking at
or
you, Dr.
Kevin
Soul.
Scott.
No, not
um,
Kevin.
he can't kill Luke. Don't worry.
You're right. You're right. Okay.
But I love his stuff. Come on.
I do too. I do too. He just breaks my heart every time.
I
And
know
he
that's what makes it
loves
so
it.
good. He has fun doing it. It's sadistic.
He loves it.
So that was one thing I thought of. Another thing I thought of as I started this movie, then I'll shut up and let you talk. Um, I was thinking a lot about the state of the empire in this, and how I thought
Okay.
about it a little bit differently this time around, because I used to think of it as like the empire was powerful, 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 and all of a sudden in this battle they're gone. And I don't think it was really that way, because I the way I thought about it, I was like, if think about the end where everyone's celebrating, like if just because they had lost that battle, that wouldn't, and yeah, the emperor died. That wouldn't have caused the entire empire to crumble all by itself. Like, yeah, your leader is gone, but some of those institutions would have lingered around a little bit longer, enough to like, deal with some of that unrest. So, as I watched the very beginning of this, and saw Moff, I always say his name wrong, Jerjerrod,
Yeah.
like the first Moff that you see
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
who's like, I need more men, like I can't do this. He is so afraid of Vader. And you think about all the Moffs and leaders that Vader choked in Empire Strikes Back. I think the Empire, ever since Tarkin died, is in a state of disarray, and is slowly losing their power, to the point where, yeah, their Moffs now and their leaders are just terrified, and are making excuses left and right. There's no one that really replaced Tarkin, and led the way that he did. Um and so it's all a sign that the Empire has started to lose hold of its power. It's also the reason why the Emperor himself comes to the Death Star, because
Yeah.
he just has to oversee it. He feels the power slipping away.
Yeah.
So what react to that? What do you think?
So first on Moff Jerjerrod?
Mhm.
Jerjerrod?
I'm sure.
I was reading that in the novelization of The Return of the Jedi, they explain a little bit more about him and his backstory and his personality.
Okay.
And one of the things that he really values is he thinks that an effective, dignified officer or servant of the Republic does not rush.
Mm,
There's something undignified about running around and trying to get something done really fast, something like that.
okay.
So
Yeah,
that
but
got
it's
me
gonna
thinking.
get you in hot water with Darth Vader when he's like, "We're
Right.
displeased with your lack of progress."
When literally Darth Vader and the Emperor show up at your job because they're unhappy with how it's going.
Yeah, exactly.
But it made me think about just sort of like how polished and whatever he looks like on screen, and how some of it is just posturing, and how some of it is surface level.
Yeah.
And maybe I can start talking a little bit about like a couple of the big themes that kind of shook out for me in this, because it's in line with that. So something that I think I paid attention to more this time around and really kind of sunk my teeth into and enjoyed is it feels like there are so many different little chapters in Return of the Jedi. And you jump around a lot. Like you're Jabba's palace, and you're on the barge, and then you're on Endor, and you're in space, and this is happening, that's happening, and so on. But so many of the chapters, a theme that kind of ties them together is these people who care about one another put themselves at personal risk and are willing to self-sacrifice themselves for the people they care about. So Lando's hiding out in Jabba's palace wearing
Mhm.
a disguise. Um, Leia sneaks in. And by the way, another fun behind the scenes thing: the woman who did Leia's voice when she's Boosh or Bausch, is it
Mhm.
Boosh?
I say boosh.
Boosh. The woman who did Leia's voice did E.T.'s voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that would have been around the same time.
Around the same
That makes
time.
sense.
Yeah. It's two blockbuster movies, but
Yeah.
so she's putting herself at risk. There are multiple times in this movie where Luke just walks in somewhere and says, I'm here to like fix this thing or set it right or whatever. And I recognize that I have to walk into the lion's den. Like I
Mhm.
have to go into Jabba's palace. I have to go into the Emperor's throne room. And when you contrast that with what happens towards the end of the movie, when you realize, oh, the Emperor is just willing to discard Darth Vader and replace him.
Mhm.
And there's no real loyalty there, no real love or anything like that. A lot of this loyalty in air quotes is just kind of posturing. It's sort of like a situational thing. It works out really well right now,
Yeah.
but it's not this enduring thing. Meanwhile, like you see the exact opposite in the rebel side, where it's like they genuinely care about each other. The Ewoks accept all these people as part of their clan, like they're part of the family. And then they're
Well,
willing
they
to,
wanted to eat them first.
they wanted to eat them. They talked it out, but then they're willing to run into battle with them. And you just see the
Yeah.
exact opposite from the Imperial side, where it's like, everybody's kind of disposable. We're all posturing.
But that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
they're not loyal to the Empire
that's
anymore.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
There's
saying.
no fear to be loyal either, too, and that's really what drove it. So, like,
Yeah,
I mean, you probably have low recruit numbers. "I need more men," that line,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're not getting people to come and
Right.
do the work. There are more that are either just abstaining and saying, like, "Alright, you know what? I'm just gonna try to stay away from this," or they're joining the rebel side. One or the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there is a lot of that posturing that's happening over there, and these mobs, these leaders that they're getting are just incompetent. They're like, you know, all for their career, but have no idea what they're doing. They just want the paycheck that comes with it
But and they're faking
and the power.
confidence. And one of the
Yeah,
things I really like throughout the course of Return of the Jedi, there's a lot of moments, especially from Han, where they admit, like, this doesn't look that good.
yeah,
Like going into battle. Oh, I don't know if I'll ever see the Millennium Falcon again. It
mhm,
could be a one-way trip. Like a lot of this stuff, they're willing to take on that risk,
yeah,
but they're not supremely confident that things are going to go great.
yeah,
But meanwhile, like it seems like the Empire couldn't be any more confident, but it's all like on the surface. It's all total baloney.
yeah, yeah. And so I guess I just thought of that this time around. I just felt like you can see those signs a little bit more, and I gotta say a lot of that is because of the extra content we've been getting lately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, like I said, from Mandalorian, which kind of showed a little bit more of the inner workings of the Empire, or even Battlefront, the Battlefront game,
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
the
Yeah.
story of that, and showing you know, showing kind of the aftermath and how the Empire tried to
Mm-hmm.
stay alive, but it was just continue to lose more and more power, you know?
Yeah.
So so yeah, that was one thing. The next thing I wanted to chat about, Luke is a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Luke is a Jedi now.
Now he is.
But I there were a couple things that really showed that he was, and again, some of the content that we've gotten in the prequels and everything have shown that you know, this is how a Jedi should behave, and the fact that there are, I can like tie it to actual starting points in Return of the Jedi when we get Luke as a Jedi is
Yeah.
pretty impressive. One is his strategy related to saving Han,
Mm.
and the fact that he was doing everything else that he could before confronting him with um you know, with a lightsaber basically, to
Yeah.
try to save Han, like giving him, like negotiating and having Leia go in first and all this. Like, he tried everything he could to avoid confrontation,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until the very end
He ran out
um
of options,
he ran
and
out of options.
that's a total Jedi move to try to
It
do it
is.
in a non-violent way first.
Yes, but it gets even better. It's his parents. It's diplomatic negotiations. The line from
Ah.
Attack of the Clones, he
Uh-huh.
tries the Padme approach first.
Mhm.
That approach doesn't work, and so he
Ooh.
does Anakin's diplomatic negotiations after that.
Ooh. Yes, you're totally right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It just dawned on me
Wait,
as I
what
was
what did they
watching that.
what did they call it? enhanced diplomatic
No, just
negotiations.
diplomatic negotiations or negotiations with the lightsaber. And then as they start fighting, wasn't it Anakin says to her, like, what about oh no, aggressive negotiations. That's what it was.
Aggressive. Yeah, I thought it was enhanced.
Aggressive. Dang it.
Aggressive. Yeah,
Aggressive negotiations. That's what I meant to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
So started out more diplomatic,
Some
moved to
somewhere
aggressive.
somebody's Newt Gunray plushie just shivered at the sound of that.
That's scary. The second one, though, that I saw of Luke
Uh-huh.
becoming a Jedi was looking for it in my notes. With the Ewoks. When they get captured by the Ewoks, they fall out of it, and Han is about to you know, shoot at them and try
Mhm.
to get away aggressively.
Yeah,
Luke, out of respect for all living creatures,
he stops
shows
him.
respect and just gives up his weapons.
Yeah,
He's like, "Nope, just give up your weapons, let him have us." Like, he wasn't going to fight these little murder bears.
yeah. Thank goodness.
So, little things like that, which have permeated other areas of Star Wars, that's all started with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I love that. Shall we maybe jump back to the beginning when we first see Luke
Sure,
in
go wherever
Jabba's
you want.
palace?
We're just
Yeah,
jumping around.
yeah. No, it's cool. So going into Jabba's palace, there are like a few visuals that stand out to me that have stuck with me for ever since I can remember seeing this movie as a kid. And there might be a chance that I saw it before I can even remember it, because I feel like, my dad was enjoying it in the house when I was a really little dude. But one of the images that just is burned into my mind after the trapdoor thing lifts up and R2 and C3PO go in, there's like a spidery thing that walks across the back. Do you remember this?
Maybe?
And
Oh,
C3PO kind of
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
C3PO kind of notices it and panics a little
Yes,
bit.
yes.
For
I
some
know what you're talking
reason,
about.
that always really freaked me out as a kid. And
Really?
yeah, I don't know what it is. Because in general, I'm okay with spiders, but for some reason that really freaked me out. Maybe
That's
because the
interesting.
door was coming down, they were going to be locked in with whatever this
Yes,
thing was.
with the thing, yeah.
And then
That's interesting.
the other thing, I love practical effects Jabba. And I used to have a book. Maybe I didn't have it. Maybe I just maybe it's one of those, when I was a kid, I would borrow the same book from the library multiple times. And it was a cross section that showed how all of the animators and puppeteers worked Jabba. And
Mhm.
so there was somebody moving his eyes, and somebody had their hand in his tongue, and somebody else was moving the tail and stuff. And it just gave
I'd
me an
hate to be that guy.
appreciation. And I don't know if they're broken out like that in the credits. I don't know if it's like,
Tongue guy.
Randy Jabba's tongue,
Yeah.
but that just gave me an appreciation for it. And I've just always loved the practical effects within
Same.
Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
And he's the biggest one. And it must have been great to be an actor and stand in front of that and have that
Yeah.
experience of talking directly to him. But the Rancor,
Mhm.
the finally seeing what happens when somebody gets out of carbonite, that was a
Mhm.
question for a little while of, how do we free this person who's been stuck in there? All of these little things make that first opening chapter of the movie really rich.
Yeah.
And then going out on the barge, there's one of my favorite funny moments in all of Star Wars.
Boba Fett.
Not Boba Fett.
Boba Fett? Where?
That's a good moment.
Oh, okay. That's my favorite.
It's subtle. It's the Luke Skywalker force kick. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think.
So when he's on the smaller barge thing, the skiff or whatever it's called, and the fighting breaks out, he kicks a guy who flies off the side and goes into the Sarlacc pit.
Okay.
But if you rewatch it, his foot goes nowhere near him when he kicks him. It's like a good 2 feet away.
Uh-huh.
But the guy is still just like, what? He flies back. And so people over time have called that a force kick.
I've heard this. Yeah, yeah.
And it's one of those things that I never noticed until people started pointing it out. But then, yeah, sure enough, like his foot doesn't come anywhere near this guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's just another one of my favorite funny moments there. But there's a lot of other like tender stuff in there. Like you get to see Han and Leia reunited,
Yeah.
and you get to see them all save one another, and you also get a moment where you start thinking like, gosh, I hope Max Rebo's okay, and
Yes. I
all
did
that good.
think of that as I was watching him playing on the barge. I'm like, "How did you get out of there?"
Yeah. Although
What?
people say that the one that you see in Book of Boba Fett is Doug Rebo, his brother.
Doug I mean, Max is a great name, but, like, yeah, Doug
Doug Rebo.
Doug is even better. I like it.
Uh,
Um, okay,
but we already talked about some of the touch ups on the Sarlacc pit. Like
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah.
What do you like? Do you remember like when you were a kid and you first saw Jabba's palace and you saw the Rancor beast and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the Rancor was terrifying to me, as a kid. One of the things that, we haven't talked about that I was gonna mention is even just, like, the droid torture room
The
where the
torture chamber where they're ripping them apart and burning that poor Gonk's
disintegrating them.
feet.
So that's what I wanna talk about, the Gonk. I thought about it, and I was like, the fact that he's, like, screaming to not do that, like, I was like, "Do they have pain receptors? Like, how does that work for a droid?" Where that would hurt, like, and how to program to feel pain, like, that who did that to droids? Why would you do that to them?
All right, here's your good place reference for this
Oh,
episode.
thank you. Thank you.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
No, go.
What's the woman's name? The helper. The
But their pain is real? Is this where you're going with it, by
yeah.
chance?
Yeah.
Okay, I know where you're going now,
What's her
jeez.
name?
Eleanor?
No, no, no.
Helper? Oh, Janet.
Janet. Yes. So
Oh,
when they go to reboot Janet or shut Janet off, uh she's programmed to scream in terror and beg for her life.
uh-huh. Yes.
So maybe it's just one of those things that's programmed into the droids for their own self-preservation because somebody owns them and they don't want to lose their investment. So maybe they
Yeah.
can appeal to people's emotions and just say, please don't hurt me. But it doesn't work on other droids, apparently.
No, also,
There she is.
there she is, and she's holding the cactus.
Nice.
Which she gets right after she gets reset.
But by the way, I think we'll have to ask one of our bro hosts like Chris about this, but I think there was recently just a one-shot comic about the torture droid in
Oh,
Jabba's
really?
palace. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember that one. I mean,
And how he kind of finds his way into that job, and I
there's
think
our
why he
other
enjoys it.
friend of 000, or right.
Yeah.
So there is a torture droid elsewhere.
Yeah.
He was also the one that was in Book of Boba Fett. He was given a new
Yes.
job, right?
He was. Yeah.
So, um, no, that was one thing that really stood out this time around. And the other thing I guess I was thinking of too was, um, again, in terms of things that like didn't age well, Slave Leia did not age very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, I I think it still works for the movie because that's totally a Jabba thing,
Yeah.
right? Like you just see like with his power, he's just gonna manipulate it, and so like I could see this happening,
Yeah.
but it still is uncomfortable
Oh,
to
totally.
be like, oh man, the and maybe it was not really uncomfortable the slave part, maybe the bikini part is just what doesn't work as much, you know?
Yeah. And the other thing that I noticed this time around was it seems like it takes a while to strangle him, which
Uh-huh.
is a little bit gruesome to watch. Like he deserves it. You know, he's a total creep and whatever, but
Yeah.
it's a little drawn out.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah.
Um,
um okay. Let's move on to something else. And that is I want to talk about the Emperor a little bit because this is the
sure,
first time that we get the Emperor. We didn't get him in 4 and 5.
that's true.
We're just getting him for the first time in this one, and he's kind of the true villain as we find out.
And we get a lot of them.
And we get a ton of them, yeah.
Yeah,
And again, this is one of those where I think it's just really interesting to see the Emperor after all of the development we already know of him and his ways, and we see
mm,
how true they really stay to his ways in the origins of this movie.
yeah,
Um his first of all, his like cunning nature, his love for shiny new Sith apprentices,
Mm-hmm.
um, his love for cloning. We don't even get that here, but like everything that we kind of get after it totally makes sense of what we see in this movie of
And
the
not and,
Emperor.
and not only his cunning, but his meticulous planning. It
Yeah,
seems like he's
exactly.
got everything planned out, and everybody's just a chess piece.
But I also think that, again, like I said, the empire is kind of fraying at the edges a little bit, and the emperor is part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are moments where I mean, he's showing up here. He's putting himself in the line of fire and
Mm.
in danger. I mean, he's the emperor, so he's fine. But like, he wouldn't normally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He just sent Vader. He just sent somebody else to take care of it or figured it would get done. But like he feels his power slipping. And so he's showing up to really regain it.
That's a good
Um,
point. Huh.
the other thing I thought of too was it was with Obi-Wan's speech. So Obi-Wan says something about how the Emperor feared Anakin having any offspring. Specifically
Mm.
said that. So if I think back to Revenge of the Sith, I think about how hastily he kind of recruited Anakin, and he knew that he wanted Anakin. He basically created him, as we've learned. He knew that he wanted Anakin to be his next apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
and I think him uh, finding out that Padme was pregnant expedited his recruitment of Anakin
Mm.
because of this fear that
Yeah.
of him having any children, knowing how powerful they could become, and now they could
Mm-hmm.
eventually threaten him. And so, if you look at the Revenge of the Sith, he's toying with Anakin to recruit him, but he's also orchestrating her death, Padme's death, in
Totally.
all of this too, because he doesn't want the children to be born and thinks that they weren't. So once he's learned that they in fact really were, he's really nervous at this point.
Yeah.
And he's afraid of losing that power again. So this is where the frays start happening. He's putting himself in danger just to avoid uh to avoid losing his power. And he decides, okay, maybe I'll get Luke to come to the dark side with me and replace Vader. And that'll be the way I get around this. But like I think there's given the context we've gotten from all the other movies and where we've seen Emperor Palpatine come up in his character development, I think of his character here in Return of the Jedi much differently than I did as a kid.
That's a great point. Because when I saw this as a kid, I did not think of him as vulnerable. I still thought of him as the Emperor, the guy who can shoot lightning out of his
Biggest
hands, and
threat. Yeah.
the biggest threat, the most cunning. He's got the toughest people are completely loyal to him, like Vader. So I didn't think of him as maybe a little bit scared and vulnerable.
I love the word vulnerable. Yeah, that's exactly how he is here.
And
He's
and
vulnerable.
and vulnerable people generally are more scary if they're
Hmm.
trying to hang on to something that they really want,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit more desperate. But yeah, it's a good point. Like all of so maybe that's part of the new experience of going back and watching this 40-year-old movie is we've gotten other stuff. It's
Yeah.
been fleshed out. There are parts of the characters that have been explored more that help us even better understand what's happening in this movie and maybe see it in a new way, which is super cool.
Exactly.
But and so like yeah, in that sense, like it makes sense to see younger Anakin at the end of the movie and stuff like that because we've gotten that other stuff that's fleshed it out. But that's a good point. That vulnerability, like from the practical side of like I need to go check on this project myself because it's not going as well as I had hoped. To knowing that Luke is down there on Endor and on his way up, and it could go one way or another way, and he's in a precarious position, which I'm not used to thinking of him being vulnerable at all.
Yeah. There's even a really subtle moment which I always thought about where the Emperor says something like interesting. He says, "Interesting that I haven't felt Luke's presence yet. I wonder if your mind is clear on the matter, Vader." Remember that part?
Yeah,
Like little things like that where but like then in that same sentence he says something about how he's foreseen all this. So you're like, is this guy senile now? Like what's going on?
I think he's maybe foreseen things that he wants to happen a certain way.
Uh-huh.
I think maybe he sees how his end game may come to pass, but there's
Mhm.
some variables in there that he doesn't have control over.
Yeah, that's a great point, yeah. Question for you.
Yeah.
Um, why does Luke have to defeat Vader to complete his training as a Jedi? This is something I've always wondered, and I don't know if I'm gonna get to the answer at the end of this, discussion, but
I don't know, but this is somewhere where I thought about some newer media that we've gotten, and it's helped me think about it in a couple of ways. But first, let's maybe talk about the George Lucas version of the story, where George Lucas has always said that the redemption of a father usually comes through the children,
Mhm.
and he's even said that kids have a way of saving their parents, and that could look like a lot of different things. And I think they've stayed true to that in some stuff, like the Mandalorian. Like Grogu saves Mando multiple times,
Yeah.
not only physically, but as the story goes on, he gives him new meaning that he
Yeah,
maybe didn't
purpose.
have when we first met him. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
exactly.
just a bounty hunter,
Right.
living bounty to bounty.
Yep. And when we watch Return of the Jedi, I think we see some of that where Luke helps to redeem Vader.
Mhm.
Did his teachers, did old Ben, did Yoda see that coming? I don't think so. I I thought about the High Republic comic books, and the High Republic comic books that I covered on the Braxium channel. There's a plug for you.
Shameless.
The ones that I covered start out with a Jedi Padawan who's going through her trials.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about trials in general, and maybe what they've looked like over time, and what different Jedi Padawans have had to face to become a Jedi Knight. And I wonder if this was part of like Luke's trials of, yes, you've had all different types of training, physical, mental, otherwise, but you haven't faced that level of challenge yet where we know that you can keep your emotions at check, that you don't give in to your anger, that you don't act out with violence, that you put into action all the different things that we've been teaching you that keep you on the light side of the force.
Mhm.
And maybe that's the ultimate test that they can think of for him.
I mean, your point is the right one, which is, you have to go through a trial. And I would have said, losing your hand in combat uh, to Vader would have been it. But because think about it, like that's basically what happened to Anakin. We've talked about like
Yeah.
one of the trial that is one of the trials is like losing a limb in battle.
Yeah.
So um so I think that's part of it, but I think there's a bigger point that Yoda is trying to make here, which is you like once he's gone, Yoda, the last of the Jedi will Luke be, and the Jedi cannot survive as long as Vader is alive, as long as Vader is on the dark side, and as
I
long
think
as the Emperor exists.
that I think is spot on, but it also makes it feel so much more risky. Of you're the last one that we've got, and we're going to send you into what might be the end for you because you're going
Yeah.
to face off with Vader and the Emperor.
Hmm.
Um, but no, I think that's a good point where the Jedi just don't stand a chance
Yeah.
if those guys are out there, especially new Jedi who are still learning.
Right. Exactly. Which I mean, right now he's their only hope.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh, speaking of only hope, how's that Obi-Wan speech? Now, did you like that segue?
Oh
That was
yeah,
pretty good. I didn't even try
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
Nice.
Obi-Wan's speech, the certain point of view speech. How does that one changed now that we've seen Obi-Wan?
That's a good point.
Right?
Um, oh yeah,
I mean, he shares his point of view, and it is spot on um, to kind of the events that we see unfold in
hmm,
Obi-Wan in that last battle, where he says, "Okay, I've finally accepted that Anakin is dead now, and
yeah,
that all that is left is Darth
yeah.
Vader."
Hmm.
Um, and that's like I felt a little bit less like he was lying
but
you
still,
know?
like, not being entirely forthright. And
Oh, yeah.
same thing with Yoda too. Like, the both of them are just like, you know what, I really shouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, she's your sister, and whatever else.
Yeah. Like, they're like, you know what's funny about that too is like, you don't want him to feel anger. You're feeding him some of these angry feelings. Like, anger leads to the dark side. Like, Yoda and Obi-Wan right now, uh, Luke has a lot of reason to feel angry at them.
Sure.
And so they're not helping his case of staying on the light side. So when he goes and faces Vader and faces uh the Emperor, he really doesn't have Obi-Wan and Yoda's teachings to help anymore. It's really just how well can he overcome his own anger, some of which they've caused, on
Yeah.
his own. And
Yeah.
it's his father that does it. He's doing it all for his dad. He
Yeah.
wants to redeem him.
Yeah.
You done? Is that what that was?
No, no. That's really good stuff. I actually want to come back to the scene in the throne room, but real quick, I just wanted to mention a meme that I always thought was funny, even though I'm
Okay.
not a parent. But there was a meme I saw a while ago. I'm sure I must have sent to you at some point, but it was something to the effect. So it's a picture of Yoda on Dagobah when he sort of tucked himself into bed, and Luke is sitting next to him, and it said something like, not until I became a parent did I understand why Yoda just rolled over and died after the millionth question from Luke.
Yes, I've seen this one. He's just like, okay, I'm done. All right,
I'm out.
900 years of this, I'm just done.
Yeah.
Enough Padawans asking me questions. Just go now.
But, going back to, all that stuff that we've gotten with Obi-Wan, and the fact that Luke is in that throne room on his own and really has to sort of rely on himself and keep his emotions in check and whatever. He doesn't, though. He reaches for that lightsaber. He tries to
Yeah,
hack the Emperor into two if he can.
yeah.
But this time around, I thought it was, when I first watched that, I thought, well, yeah, Darth Vader is charged with protecting his Emperor, and he's his loyal servant, whatever. Part of that, though, might be he's also saving Luke from that fate.
Mm-hmm.
He's preventing Luke from getting blood on his hands, so to speak,
Mm.
and from being consumed by the fact that, because, you think about the moment that Anakin had where he beheads the Emperor's other apprentice
Mm-hmm.
and gives into
Yeah.
that anger and whatever with Dooku. And Luke almost had that moment with the Emperor, but Anakin, Darth Vader intervened and prevented that,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it a lot harder for him to snowball into his anger and whatever else.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way.
that's another moment that for me, it's like, okay, without the prequels, it just feels like Vader's protecting his boss. But with the prequels, I think he's protecting Luke.
And yeah, yeah. I mean, he's just like on the other side now, and he sees it. He's like, oh my gosh, I see what happens.
He's going to do what I did,
Uh
and
huh.
and I can't let that happen.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. It is amazing though how much other Star Wars content has creeped in and made this even better. And it was already
Totally.
my favorite
It was
going in.
already great.
Like I think all of the Ewoks fighting, and we didn't even talk about like some of the stuff that happens on Endor and fight with Chewbacca stealing the ATST, and that's one of my favorite scenes. Or like, I still I this time get a little bit choked up when Vader finally returns and redeems himself and throws the
Oh
Emperor over.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's some of the best stuff. Or when Lando is flying into the middle of the Death Star to destroy it, and
Yeah.
he gets a scratch on it. I think of that every single time. Like, you got a scratch on it. You didn't live up to your word.
Yeah.
Um, but
Or or
anyway,
or when Nanta dies. the, the poor little Ewok, and
yeah,
there was a lot of Twitter buzz about this recently. About a lot of people thought that was one of their saddest moments when they were a kid and
it
they
is
saw
a
that.
sad moment. I thought it was
It's a
sad too.
heartbreaking moment. Um, but maybe just one other quick Ewok observation.
Yeah, we
I
didn't talk about them enough for your
No, no, no,
love
and
for
it's
them.
okay. It's okay. I'll just after this, I'll continue writing my Ewok fan fiction novel that I'm working on. But when they're fighting the stormtroopers, they're doing it in crafty ways that are more creative because they don't have as sophisticated weapons. And I noticed this time around that like there's one like 3-second bit where a bunch of them jump over a log and are just bashing the skulls in of the stormtroopers, just hacking away at their helmets.
Yeah.
And it's pretty rough. Like some of the stuff where, the two big logs are on ropes and they come together and they pinch
I
the
love
head.
that part.
Love it. Some of that stuff is pretty crafty and kind of like funny too. But like this part, I was like, oh man, I could totally see them eating these guys afterwards.
Yes. And everyone else just turning the other way, like we did not see this. These are
we're gonna ignore these war crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, there's
absolve themselves from it. Yeah.
There's so many spectacular moments. I think one of the things that maybe I haven't given enough credit to this movie for in the past is just the really well done tension of the whole rebel fleet is there and they don't know if the shield is down yet.
Yeah.
And they don't have that communication and they're just guessing and they pull out the last second and all this coordination has to work. And I think it builds the tension really well. And that was really kind of fun to watch when I was enjoying it this time around.
Yeah. That's where our line, it's a trap, comes from, right?
Yeah, sure is.
There is a lot of tension. There's a few moments where they're back to back to back sequences of loss, failure, like setback. Like they're just, there's, where you feel that tension rising, where you feel that, bit of a loss of hope. And then it cuts to the Emperor, like, you see, you're losing. And this isn't going well for you, and it builds the anger up in Luke, and that's when he decides to take the lightsaber, which after that is when things start going back into the favor of the rebels. So there are some great moments. It's still at the top of my list. I still think it's my favorite Star Wars movie.
I still love it.
Later.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was looking today and there is a very, very, very highly rated making of the Return of the Jedi book that I think I got to pick up. Like it's got hundreds of 5-star reviews. So at some point I'm going to pick that up and really dig into that one.
Sounds good. We'll have to come back to this topic at some point once
we shall report back.
That. Until then, you know where to find us. We are on Twitter at Starbros Podcast. We told you to wait around. Here you go. This is how you contact us.
Here's the big payoff.
Here's the payoff. 1 hour later.
Yeah.
You can email us at thestarbrospodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Facebook. We have a Star Bros page there.
Yep.
And that's about it.
And the Broaxium YouTube channel. Where if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, cool. Just know that we're also on YouTube. A lot of people like to, in the background while they're working or something, make their little YouTube playlist. We're on there on the Broaxium YouTube channel.
That's where you can go to see our tired little faces.
Yes.
Because we're up way past Jan's bedtime.
Smash that subscribe button.
Yes. Check us out. Make sure to take a look at the quick shots and all the comics. So it is your turn to end it, my friend.
Yes. And in honor this time of Admiral Akbar and his courageous valor at the Battle of the Farce Moon of Endor. It's a wrap.
That's good build up. I liked it.